Hey everybody, welcome back to government class, virtual style. Today we are going to continue cruising through the curriculum. Uh, Last time we met virtually, we talked about linkage institutions, particularly interest groups, the roles that they play, and how they link the people to the government and how they really shape and influence the government. Today, we're going to be talking about the media, which is incredibly important as well, and how the media plays a big role in the government, the role that they play for the people, along with how politicians use the media and some of the bigger problems that are shaping the media, which is something that's gotten a lot of attention over the past, I'd say, decade, especially. And it's something that is probably the most relevant for you because you are probably not going to engage with an interest group really at any point in your life, but you are going to be dealing with the media on effectively a daily basis. So let's dive in. So the media, what does the media do in politics? So the media is, again, super duper duper important, sometimes known as the fourth estate, which of course comes from the French Revolution, or the fourth branch of government. The media connects the people with their elected officials. The biggest thing that they do is the media helps to keep the people informed, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, right now we have a pandemic crisis going on throughout the country. The way we are kept informed as to what's happening with the coronavirus, or how is the government responding to the coronavirus, or is it safe to go out? The way that we're getting that information is really through the media. So the biggest thing, kind of big picture, that the media does is to keep the people informed. And media comes in all shapes and sizes. We have, the television media, your news channels, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, NBC News, CBS News, your television. There's the radio, which has definitely decreased in importance in the past, I don't know, 50, 60 years. A lot of internet websites, even Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, that stuff is all involved in the media. And newspapers. I mean, newspapers are still critically important. All of that serves to keep the people informed in terms of what's going on throughout the country, even the local areas, and worldwide as well. So, in terms of how they actually operate, the media helps to set what's known as the public agenda. So, effectively, what's getting attention? What are people worried about? What are people dealing with? Right now, that's really easy to determine. We have the coronavirus, COVID, whatever you want to call it. Um, that is obviously going to be a main focus of the media. So the media determines what gets covered. They cover things that are deemed important. They cover politicians. They are going to shine a light on specific issues. You can see this if you turn on any newscast. Whatever they choose to talk about that day, and you see a lot of differences too between local news versus national news. If you watch Wavy or like the 5 o'clock news, they're going to be dealing with local issues, whereas if you watch CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, they're going to be dealing more nationwide, big picture, national and international issues. Um, Reporters go to conferences, reporters investigate, reporters gather information. They kind of shine a light on things that are happening that they deem are important. And quite frankly, I think a lot of the news media has taken a hit reputation wise over the past really couple years or so. And some of that's justified. I think a lot of that's also unfair too. You can't really imagine a democracy without the media, without people asking questions, without people, digging deeper. Um, we are a democracy. Voters need to know what's going on in order to know how to vote, in order to make informed decisions, in order to protect their families, even. And I think the media does a pretty good job of keeping the people informed, although certainly that is actually up for debate. There's probably people out there. In fact, I know there are people out there who would disagree with me on that one. So this is something you've probably seen. This is a press conference. It's a classic way um, that politicians interact with the media. Here, Dr. Fauci, he is the chief um, kind of disease expert. I know there's a better word for that. For the White House, he has served multiple presidents. Normally, what would happen during a White House press conference, and it actually happened in this one, is the president will speak. Here's President Trump. He will speak, he will give whatever statement or message that he wants to have, and then reporters will ask questions to get more information, to kind of try to get a little bit of, I don't want to say an interrogation, but to ask a deeper question or to maybe challenge them. So this is very, very common. Presidents give press conferences all the time. It's not just the president, though. Governors do it. A lot of elected officials do it. CEOs do it. Celebrities do it. So the press conference is a very, very, very old tradition. And in turn, I already kind of hit on some of these, but in terms of what the media does in politics, huge thing, watchdog. If something shady is going on, they call it out. You may remember from your U.S. history class the muckrakers, the people who exposed some of the issues of American society. The idea is you bring attention to it, that will bring public scrutiny, and then people will at least be aware of it. And if there's something bad going on, the public attention will hopefully shift some of what's happening. Also huge, and this is a big, big deal, the role of the media as gatekeeper. And this is probably where you could level some of the bigger criticisms of the media. They decide what gets attention simply by what they choose to cover. If the media covers something, it's going to get more attention, it's going to get more publicity. And if they choose not to, then it's not going to get that attention, and the people are not going to be informed. And then we already hit linkage institutions. And this is important too. Politicians actually use the media all the time. You cannot be a successful politician on a major level without having an effective use of the media, without knowing how to actually get things done and to communicate directly through the media. President Trump has done this pretty well, actually. He's actually, I don't want to say he's pioneered, but his use of Twitter has been incredibly influential in terms of him getting his message directly to the people. In fact, his use of Twitter is unique because it actually skips the media in general. He doesn't even need to go through a press conference or to talk on the news. He can actually tweet something directly, and then you kind of skip the middleman, which would be the media in this case. But if you're a politician, you're going to use the media to try to get your perspective, to try to get your argument, your take on what's happening in the world or whatever issue is going on. So you're going to use the media to try to support your agenda and try to get public opinion behind you. So when President Trump was advocating for his border wall, he would go on the media and say, we need to have a border wall. We need to have it for this reason, and to really advocate for it through the media. When Barack Obama was president, he would say things like, we need better health care, and he would advocate for what became the Affordable Care Act, use the media to try to push their agenda and to try and kind of shape the narrative or to shape the popularity of whatever it is that they're advocating for or coming out against in some cases. And so you'll see this all the time. Congressmen, senators, governors, influential people, they will use the media to try to shape opinion, to try to shape public opinion for their point of view. So obviously you should always approach a politician's perspective with some degree of skepticism. They're going to be one-sided. They're going to be advocating for their point of view. That's why the media can actually play a useful role in sometimes pushing back or sometimes asking a deeper question to get a politician maybe off of their talking point and try to get a deeper answer. Now, this is huge, huge, huge. And probably I would argue the biggest problem in American society is this right here. American society has become a huge, what you would say is an echo chamber. So people are only, we become a very divided country. I'm sure you've noticed. In fact, most of you guys have actually grown up in this, but we are very, very biased. You have the left with the Democrats and the right with the Republicans, and it's almost like there's no middle ground. You don't hear many people talk or calling for compromise or, hey, let's hear them out or let's hear the other side. Moderates do not really, they're not really heard from as much, which is really kind of traumatic. And the reason is largely, I would say, the way that we actually consume media. You can get your media from any source that you want to nowadays. You can get it online, you can watch whatever news station that you want. And it used to be back in the day, you would have your newspapers, but in terms of, there wasn't an internet, you only had a couple of news stations. And so the news stations didn't cater to any one side. They would just kind of give a down the middle approach. And so everyone got their news from relatively the same, basic places. This is a bit of a simplification, but it's not too far off. And so you had what you could call like a town square effect, where everyone would get their news from the same basic area, which was pretty much moderate, not biased, not tremendously biased. Well, nowadays, because you have MSNBC for Democrats or Fox News for Republicans, people are actually getting a lot more of their information from a biased source, from a biased perspective, which is only reinforcing the views that you already believe in. So, and it kind of makes sense though. People want to hear news or they want to hear perspectives that complements what they already believe. So if I'm a Democrat and I can watch MSNBC, which is pretty liberal, and you're going to hear a perspective on the news that you already agree with, you're more likely to watch MSNBC. It's comforting, it reinforces your pre-established views. If you're Republican, same thing for Fox News. Well, the problem that occurs when you have that type of news consumption and you're only hearing perspectives that you agree with is you don't really get exposed to the other side and you develop a much more of an us versus them mentality. This is known as tribalism. America is more and more and more devolving into two separate tribes. You almost don't have much communication between both sides, which is really, really tragic. So, one reason you're seeing so much argument and so much disagreement in our national politics, and much less people compromising or coming together or sacrificing things that they agree with to try and get something done, is because we are living in a more tribal society where I'm right, they're wrong, I'm smart, they're stupid, and it's much harder to find middle ground. And that can be reflected in the way that we consume our news. So here's Rachel Maddow. She is a liberal pundit, so someone who kind of speaks their opinions on MSNBC. I have some Democrat friends who are big fans of Rachel Maddow. Here's Sean Hannity on Fox News. Same basic idea on the right. These are very popular people, by the way. They get a lot of people watching them, which kind of, again, just reinforces their perspective. So here's a chart. It's a little outdated. It's actually been amended, but the trick is when you're consuming news, you want to follow news that's going to be relatively unbiased, right? There's always going to be a little bit of a left-right lean with a lot of news, but you want to try and be consuming news from places that are relatively unbiased. And it's important that you're able to recognize bias when you see it. One thing I would tell you to beware anything that you see on social media, especially things that are shared or liked by some people. A lot of that stuff is either fake or incredibly biased. Again, it's comforting to hear things that you agree with and to kind of spread that. So right away, if it's on Facebook, if it's on Twitter, if it's on TikTok, I don't know if TikTok does news, right away, kind of be skeptical of it. If it sounds outlandish, if it sounds crazy, it's probably made up, so beware of that. Also, when in doubt, if you see a story that strikes you as odd, try to find it from one of the bigger, more reputable news sources. when in doubt, try to find a second source or a second outlet that will confirm it. Always beware of the biased sites. So try to consume unbiased news, unbiased information. And here's where I will leave you. Here's a kind of a more updated chart. So this measures things, left to right at the top. So how liberal or how conservative it is. And then this axis shows you about how the quality of the news, right? So if you look at, let's take over here, the New Yorker, right? That is pretty liberal. That has a liberal bent, but it's actually pretty good news. It's going to be a little biased, but it's still high quality news. If you look at the Wall Street Journal, it's a little conservative, but still it's pretty high up on the information. So you should trust anything that you get from the Wall Street Journal, even if it's a little conservative. Avoid the stuff down here. This stuff is just bad, 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 bad. Do not get any information down there. You want to be up in here, especially here. That's your sweet spot. So I'm out of time. I hope you guys are well. Please, again, send me emails and do my office hours if you have any questions. Bye.